Hey friends, it's Anna and welcome to a very exciting and cozy plan with me. We are getting ready for the new year by setting up my 2025 bullet journal. I went with an easy greenery theme with some hints of gold that I absolutely adore, and I'm really excited to share some of these spreads with you guys. They look pretty, but I think they're going to be really useful for the coming year. Grab some tea or coffee, get cozy, and let's start journaling. One of my favorite things about the new year is getting to buy my next journal, and I decided on this Archer and Olive notebook called Storybook and Olive. The cover is absolutely stunning with the embossed patterns and foiled gold, and this notebook has all the features that I love, like 160 GSM paper, the bookmark ribbons, and back pocket. We're going to start the setup with the name page, of course. I'm going to keep it nice and simple. I'm writing out my name in a cursive font with this Jelly Roll Gold gel pen. This ties in really nice with the cover. I'm also going to add a few little leaf doodles on the sides using my Sakura Micron in the smallest size 005. I'm going to show you guys my mood board for this theme in a second, but it was very much inspired by this Archer and Olive journal. The green and gold, the vining leaves, the overall elegant feel. I thought it would be cool if my theme for the first few pages was just a continuation of the outside of the journal. So as you saw, I'm only using a few colors throughout the entire setup, some Tombow brush pens and zebra mild liners in green and beige. I'll finish up the name page with some gold dots, and then I'm going to do this after filming for privacy reasons, but I will add my phone number and email to this page in case, heaven forbid, I ever lose this journal. We're going to skip over these awkward pages that are at the beginning of every journal, but we will come back to these and construct them into something useful in a minute. Here's the mood board I mentioned. I make these in this Rhoda dot grid pad pretty much before every setup. This is where I kind of brainstorm any doodles and get my colors set and test out any washi tape or material I want to use. This is how I make sure everything looks good together, and also it's just nice to look at for inspiration when designing my spreads. So we are diving right into our 2025 cover page. I'm pasting in some of this beige paper that I ripped out from a random journal I recently found in my closet. You can maybe see the 2025 numbers sketched out in pencil, but we're actually going to start with drawing some greenery since these will be in front of the numbers. Like I said, I was inspired by this journal cover to do a simple green and gold vining leaves theme. All the drawings are very quick and easy, definitely beginner friendly if you want to recreate any of these designs. I'm drawing two basic leaves, this bigger one with a teardrop shape on top and two curves at the bottom, and in front of those I'm drawing some basic smaller leaves with one vein down the middle. We're going to paste in some more paper at the top and do a similar design up here. Interspersed with all these smaller leaves on the vine, I'll also add a few berries or really thin leaves that will eventually be in gold. I'm going to use pretty much these same elements throughout the whole setup. Again, all the drawings are very simple, and then of course we'll have some washi tape to add a little more decoration in the end. One more step before we actually write 2025, I'm going to go ahead and color in all the leaves. I'm using this light green zebra mild liner for all the big leaves. You'll see me use a darker Tombow green for the small leaves, and then I'll finish with the gold. I'm going to keep these colors consistent, so the big leaves will always be in this light green, the small ones in the darker shade, and the berries in gold. I thought it'd be nice to add a touch more gold, break up the green a little bit, so I'm drawing some vines of really small leaves just in the gold. It would have been helpful to have this gel pen in a smaller size. I wasn't able to do my best with the leaf shape. Now let's finally write 2025. I'm using my black Tombow pen, the fine tip side to do the outlines first, and then I'll use the brush tip side to color it in. When going over the numbers with the brush tip, I can also sort of smooth out some of the outlines. I'm using a really bold font and all my titles will be in plain black. I think that keeps it looking really clean, especially since there's so much else going on the page. After this title, we will also add some touches of washi tape. I'm going to pull from a few different tape sets here, some from the Petals and Parchment set from the washi tape shop, my vintage set and grid sets from Nade, and a few from this vintage botanical set. I will link all of these and all the supplies I'm using in this setup in the description box below. So I'm going to place these around the corners, building on top of the paper. I've been really enjoying a junk journaling style recently, but I also love drawing in my journal, so my goal for this setup was to kind of combine the two. I love the messy style of junk journals. It makes it feel a little more relaxed, which is nice because I never want to feel scared of using my journal and ruining a perfect spread. Let me know what you guys think, if you prefer journal setups that are more of a collage style or with drawings. I'm adding a few scattered gold dots, and that's our completed cover page. Next, we're going to create my grid spacing bookmark, which has been a staple in my bullet journals, but I'm doing a very simplified version this year. This is a page I cut out from the back of the journal, and I'm going to number the dot grids horizontally and vertically. In case you're not familiar with the grid spacing guide, it's basically a tool to help you figure out different ways to divide up a page, so that's helpful when you're designing spreads. In the past, I've gotten really fancy with it, marking out how to divide the page in thirds and quarters, with spaces, without spaces, all these different options. But I realized this past year, really the main thing I was always looking at my bookmark for was dividing the page in half and then just using the edge numbers as a ruler to quickly count squares. So I figured this year that's all I needed to include. You can see here I also wrote a little reminder in the corner to enjoy the process, and now I'm folding this in half to make it into a bookmark. Going back over to those awkward pages in the beginning, I'm actually going to use these to create a little pouch to hold the bookmark. So I'm cutting off the top part of this front page using an X-Acto knife, and I'm using these letter stencils as a makeshift cutting mat because it's thin enough to go right up to the spine of the journal. I'm using some double-sided tape on the back side of the page to tape around the edges. I already measured where the bookmark would go and which parts to leave untaped. And now this is a perfectly fitted pouch to hold the grid bookmark. This is a perfect use for these pages. I'll probably continue to do this in every journal because it's worked out so well in the past journals I've done this in. It was nice this year to have a grid spacing guide so minimal to set up, but if you are a person who would benefit from all those other spacing options, you can check out my 2024 setup where I explain the grid guide more in depth and all the different breakdowns you could include. I love having it as a bookmark too, so I can take it out and lay it directly on the page I'm working on. We're going to finish up this pouch by adding a title and some more leaf drawings. I'm creating a border first with this grid washi tape, and I'll also add some gold outlines. I'm going to do the title with my alphabet stamp set, and then I'll draw some leaf doodles in the space around the box. I thought it'd be cute to space out each of the leaf designs, kind of a contrast from the bunches of overlapping greenery that were on the cover page. I think these first two spreads are the most decoration heavy, and from this point on, most of the space on the pages will be for function, with some decorations in the margins, of course. I can't wait to share these upcoming pages with you guys. I'm actually starting a 12-week year in January based on the book The 12-Week Year by Brian P. Morgan and Michael Lennington. I'll talk way more about this system in my vision and goals spreads, but this is basically a method where you make your plans in a 12-week cycle instead of an annual cycle. So I'm kind of formatting the rest of my journal setup that way. And I think those spreads will be really helpful and hopefully be a better system for me for tracking and achieving some goals I have. Okay, let's tuck in the bookmark, and that's my completed grid spacing guide. On to another staple in my journal. These next 2 pages will be my year at a glance. I'm using this Tombow Fudenosuke to write my title up top in a calligraphy font, and I forgot the C in glance, but luckily it was easy to make the E into a C and then add another letter using my white gel pen to cover up the mistake. I also, of course, managed to smudge the E as well. Maybe one day I will create a setup where I don't have to use whiteout, but I don't know, it may never happen. I'm using my stamp set again for the month titles, and the spread's name is kind of misleading because I'm actually only including the first 5 months and then a space for any future events I need to record outside that time frame. My thought was that I'm trying to get into this mindset of a 12-week year, and so I'll probably be making another similar setup in 12 weeks midway through this journal. And I don't normally have a ton of stuff scheduled way far in advance anyways, so I think 5 months will cover me for most things I need to record for the next few weeks. My plan is to make another year at a glance at the beginning of the next 12-week cycle in a similar format. And of course, anything I do have scheduled outside these 5 months, I can list it in the future column. For those of you who are looking for ideas for planning in a 6-month interval, which I know is more common in a journal, you could definitely use this format and replace the future column with June. Now that we have our title and columns made, I'm making a mini calendar for each month, starting with the days of the week on the top. Then I'll write the dates so I can see how each month is laid out. And all the space below that in the column is where I'll have room to write any travel, events, appointments, etc. The spread was looking pretty plain at this point, so I wanted to go ahead and draw some vines at the bottom. We'll do some more decorations around the title at the end, but I just needed to see a little color before adding some beige to the columns. I plan the general layout of all my spreads before putting anything down, but sometimes I need to actually see elements of the spread come to life before making some color or border decisions. Like, for example, I wasn't sure if I wanted to add these beige lines to every column or every other one, so I started out alternating and then decided that looked weird and filled them all in. We're going to finish off this spread with some more collage elements and doodles around the title. I didn't mean for this setup to be so spring feeling, considering most of these spreads are mainly for winter months. I think I could have made it a little more wintry or just neutral by only using the dark greens. But maybe it's a good thing because I know as soon as Christmas is over, I'm going to be wishing for spring anyways. So while we're finishing up this spread, I wanted to go ahead and introduce the 12-week year because the format for the next few pages about vision and goals is inspired by that system. Like I mentioned, this is basically just an alternative to planning on an annual basis, where instead you set your goals in 12-week increments. We all know how notoriously hard it is to stick to New Year's resolutions, and that's because it's just such a long time frame to account for. But a 12-week year is short enough to narrow your focus to the week and more to the point to the day, which is where execution actually occurs. The kind of starting point for this system is creating a strong vision that you emotionally connect to. So these next pages are for that vision. I'm creating a little origami envelope here, and that will eventually hold the page with my vision written out. I'm using some tea stain paper that I made with a tutorial from Plant-Based Bride. I cut it into a square piece before folding it, and I'm tucking these two bottom triangles into each other. I'll use some double-sided tape to stick the back of this onto the page and also stick the bottom together so it's not open. I thought it not only would be cute to have a little envelope to hold my vision, but I thought it would work out well to give myself unlimited empty pages in a different space to do some more long form journaling on figuring out what my vision is. And then my idea is to make a summary of that long form journaling, write it on one page, and then tuck that finalized version here. The 12-week yearbook stresses that it's important to look at your vision every day to stay on track and keep up motivation. So I think this will make it easy to flip back to this page, pull it out, and reference what I've written. I'm going to decorate the pages by adding some drawings, half on, half off the envelope. That's a fun way to blend it into the spread. And I also added this quote, "Enjoy the beauty of becoming." I saw this on Pinterest. It wasn't attributed to someone, so I don't know if it's an identified quote, but I think this is a fitting sentiment to keep in mind when envisioning future goals. So vision is the first discipline, they call it, in this 12-week year system, and that's followed by planning, which is what we're going to do on the following pages with my goals spread, then process control, measurement, and time use. The book has this whole system to go along with a 12-week cycle. I won't go too much more in depth here, but I'll link the book in the description box if you're interested. It's pretty short and easy to get through, but I related to a lot of their justifications of why this way of thinking might be helpful. I'm going to add some more greenery at the top of the envelope, and I can also share some more of the guidance they gave on creating your vision. The first journaling prompt was to write out a picture of what your ideal life would look like in the distant future, so like 10 plus years, and then read back through it and circle what you connect to emotionally. Based on that, write in as much detail as possible what a great life would look like in 3 years, and then write out what a great life would look like in 12 weeks. They also suggested you could write out the 7 areas of life balance: spiritual, spouse or partner, family, community, physical, personal, and business, and rate each on a 1 to 10 scale on how satisfied you are. And that could give some insight on what areas you might want to do some more reflection on. So that's the type of stuff I'll be journaling about before creating the final vision I place here. Moving over to this right side, this space is for a vision board, basically a visual version of what's going to be written in the envelope. I'm writing the title in a calligraphy font at the top, and then I'll enclose most of the page with the border. A vision board wasn't part of the 12-week plan, but I am a very visual person, so seeing aesthetic pictures of my goals is very inspiring to me. It helps me romanticize and embrace challenges or those everyday things like going on a run or cooking dinner. A vision board can help me frame those routine habits as beautiful and exciting instead of thinking of them like a chore. Before filling in the board, I'm coloring in the border. I make it a little more interesting by adding some shading, and the edges have some breaks. I'll also add the gold spots randomly scattered around. I think these add such a fun little touch to the pages, and I forgot to draw some on the left side, so we'll do that too. I'm going to wait until after I've actually done my reflection and written my vision out before making this set in stone, but I did go ahead and print out some pictures that I might want to use. I'm cutting those out and I'll stick them on the page with some washi tape so I can rearrange or add or subtract things later. To break up the images a little bit, I'm also going to add some phrases relating to what's pictured, general ideas I might want to focus on. Again, I'll paste these in washi tape for now so they're not set in stone. Now we're going to collage together all these on the board. I found all these images on Pinterest and I love the way these look. I'm already feeling inspired looking at it now. And I know if a spread looks nice, I'm more likely to flip back to it, so I don't think I'll have any issue flipping back to these pages daily and getting re-motivated by that vision. Also, to help me easily find this spread, I'm going to add a tab with some washi tape. I'm using this grid tape, which makes it easier to line up the tab and fold it exactly in half so that it sticks to either side of the page and slightly sticks out. I'm also going to cut the edges just because I like the look of that shape better, and now I can always easily find this spread, and the tab is removable if I ever want to take it out. I think it sticks out just the right amount too, not too prominent, but it'll work. Next up is the planning stage of this 12-week year, which means I'm writing out my goals for this quote-unquote year. I already feel better about making goals for a 12-week period. It already feels much more doable, and the deadline is on the horizon, so it gives it that little sense of urgency. I'm writing my title up top in 2 fonts. The first is the same bold font I used on the cover page, and then I'll write goals in the calligraphy font I've been using. This bold text is based on the DM serif display font in Canva, and I think it contrasts really nicely with the more delicate brush lettering. I'm limiting myself to 2 goals for the next 12 weeks. Since it's a shorter period of time, I can really narrow my focus instead of trying to tackle every aspect of life. And they also shared some very compelling stats in the book about how much more effective we are when we're focusing on less things, only working on 1 or 2 major changes or projects at a time. So each goal will get a page. I'm leaving the space at the top to actually write each goal, and then below I'll create some sections for planning. A quick intermission though to add some vines before I draw the tables. Again, everything was looking very plain, so I wanted to go ahead and add some color. Also, these vines will be in front of the borders I'm about to draw. So these 2 goals should be something that contribute meaningfully to my vision and be a realistic stretch, challenging enough to be exciting but not super unrealistic. The system in the book then has you write out the exact actions and steps you need to take to complete the goal, whether those be recurring habits like go running 4 times a week if it's a health-related goal, or a set task like paint the kitchen cabinets if it's a home renovation goal, which I have a feeling one of mine will be because we just moved into a new house and getting that fixed up is a big priority for me right now. So I'm creating 2 identical tables for each goal using that same border design. I have a column for the action and a column to assign what week it's due. That's another nice thing about planning on a smaller scale is you can actually plan week by week. The book also has some guidance for planning on a monthly and especially weekly basis as well, so be sure to stay tuned for my upcoming Plan With Me videos because I'll be incorporating some of that in my monthly setups. I went ahead and created rows for each action item. Hopefully these will be enough. I have 12 for each goal. And the last step to complete these tables is I'm going to go ahead and write 1 through 12 in each week section so I can just circle the week the task is due. Or if it's a recurring task, I can circle all 12 weeks or whatever is applicable. I think this is so much more powerful than writing out vague New Year's resolutions. It will force me to prioritize because I only get 2 goals, and I'll have to come up with the exact plan on how to achieve these before the 12 weeks even start. So even if you're not doing the 12-week year plan per se, I would definitely still recommend setting goals like this for whatever time period. We're way more likely to follow through if we've come up with a specific plan and taken the time to write it out. I'm going to finish off these pages with some collage elements and drawings around the title, similar to what we did on the Year at a Glance page. I'm really loving this color scheme, the neutrals and green, which is my favorite color. I'm actually doing a full year of green journals for 2025. My reading journal, which I'll be setting up soon, is green, and I already got the notebook I'm planning on using for the second half of 2025, which is green as well. I unboxed all of these in a Black Friday stationery haul I recently did, so I'll link that if you want to check out my other green journals and a bunch of fun stationery tools I got for the holidays and a new year of journaling. I'm finishing off the spread with some gold dots, and I'm also going to add a tab to this page as well, since theoretically I should be referencing these goals every week when I'm making my weekly plan to see what action is scheduled for that week. Moving back a few pages to the last spread of this 2025 setup, and I added a tab to this page too because this is going to be my cleaning tracker. I knew I wanted this spread right after my year at a glance, but I kind of wanted to see how the design of the other pages looked before creating this one, so that's why we're doing it a little out of order. I'm writing a title and a little subtitle up top and drawing that beige border design to separate these from the rest of the spread. I go through phases in my journal with fonts or borders or materials I like to use. Like, I've been really loving this border style recently. It was in my December setup as well. Just the same as other aspects of life, I guess, I also have my different bullet journal phases. I got this spread idea from a picture I saw on Pinterest. I'm going to change the bottom columns, but I thought this way to track monthly and bi-monthly tasks was really clever. So I did my titles in the stamp set, and I'm drawing 2 gold boxes with the first 6 months labeled on top. That's what the JFMAMJ stands for. For the bi-weekly sections, I'm also drawing a dot for the columns in between the months because the task should be done twice a month. I'm writing out my tasks with the space on the far left of the box, and the idea is that each time I complete the task, I'll draw a little X in that row under the respective month it was completed. I had already brainstormed a list of tasks for our house, so that's how I knew how big to make these sections, but I also left a little space at the bottom in case I think of any more. And I made these sections big enough to track a full 6 months because I had the room, so this spread should last me through the entirety of this journal. I usually go through 2 of these A5 journals in 1 calendar year. It should be easy to flip back to throughout the next 6 months with the tab too. I can't believe I've never used tabs in my journal before. I feel like these are going to be so useful. So the bi-weekly and monthly tasks are trackers where I'm actually checking them off, but some of these bottom sections are going to serve as reference lists. I'm using that beige paper to enclose 2 of the columns and using my beige Tombow to draw some highlights in a grid to designate the other 2 columns. I'll do the titles in my stamp set. The sections on the left page are for daily and weekly cleaning tasks. I thought it would be too much hassle and just not necessary to make trackers for such frequent tasks, so I'm just going to make a list of the things I would ideally clean on that basis, just as a reminder and a motivation when I flip back to the spread to check off items on the trackers and I'll see these lists. The area on the right page are for less frequent items. Last done is a space for things I don't have a schedule for, like descaling my espresso machine, but it would be nice to remember when I did that last. And annual is where I'll make a list for the big things I only need to do once a year. As I do each one, I'll be able to check those off, and I'll also probably record a date next to those. I haven't thought of all these tasks yet, so that's why I'm not writing anything down for now. I really like the layout of this cleaning spread. I'm excited to see how well it works for me over the next 6 months. I'll definitely do a review of these spread layouts when I do my mid-year journal migration, so stay tuned to hear my thoughts after using these for a while. You can always tell I really like a spread when it's repeated in multiple journal setups, like my year at a glance and grid spacing rulers. Those formats have stuck around for a while. I had some empty space on this right page since the monthly tracker was a little smaller, so I added some decoration there. I'm also going to add some washi tape around both pages to balance it out. And that completes my 2025 bullet journal setup once I add some final gold dots. Let's do a final flip through of all the spreads together. I love how these look aesthetically, and it was a really fun setup to create with easy drawings and some fun collaging. I think these spreads will be really functional for me as well. I'll definitely keep you guys updated on how well this 12-week year is going, and I'm excited to try some new formats in my monthly setups. Let me know if you got any ideas to use in your own journals, or if you have any spread suggestions for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm wishing you a beautiful start to 2025.